The worst thing you can do is cover up your sin. To deny the truth and go on pretending. Sin never gets smaller when you deny it. It gets bigger, and sooner or later, someone will smell you, and you will be embarrassed if you try to deny it, if you try to cover it up. Now, I heard a story about a young man who was dating a girl. And he really liked this girl, and he was looking forward to the day that he could go and visit that girl's family. And so he went. And he was in their living room, sitting there on the couch. And his girlfriend's dog came and sat right next to him. So he's petting the dog. And he's sitting there visiting with her parents. And it was a good day. He was making a good impression. He was very happy. But suddenly, maybe he ate kimchi for breakfast or something. Suddenly he had pressure in his stomach. And he knew something was going to happen. It was a good day gone bad. Because he kept holding things in and in and in, and all of a sudden, he could have died. But her mother said to the dog, "Over!" And oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. She thinks the dog did it. He felt so much better. And then he felt worse. Because it was going to happen again. And suddenly, Rover! Thank you, Lord. She thinks it's the dog. The third time he did it, and the mother said, "Rover, get away from him before he kills you." Some people are like that young man. They think they're hiding it. They think they can hide their sin. Nobody will find out. But it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until finally, huge embarrassment. Because the worst thing in the world to do is to try to hide the truth, hide your sin, and go on pretending. Sin produces the poison of oppression and guilt. Sin works in us to make us feel like all the eyes are on us. Everybody's looking at me. I did a boo-boo. I did a bad thing. And when we do bad things, we think, God sees us. We try to hide. We try to deny. There's a story told in medieval England where one man sent a note to the 12 most prominent men in town. In that note, all it said was this little phrase: "All is discovered. Flee while you can. Run away while you can get away." You know what? Who wrote that note, whoever wrote that note, didn't know anything. Do you know how many men ran away? All 12 men left town. That's the way sin is. We feel like we're hiding it. We can cover it up. Nobody will find out. And the slightest little thing will just oppress us. They found out. I got to run away and leave forever. Sin builds that oppression, the poison, the oppression of guilt. And sin is compounded because when we deny the truth and say, "I'm not a sinner," God just said, "You're a sinner." And you say, "No, not me. I'm not a sinner." Then what are we saying about God? God is a liar. That makes double trouble, triple trouble. The worst thing in the world to do is to deny the truth about the easiest thing in the world to do. What's the easiest thing in the world to do? To sin. What's the worst thing in the world to do? Is to not deny it, to hide it, to pretend it didn't happen. What's the hardest thing in the world to do? What's the thing you don't want to do and I don't want to do? We don't want to admit it. Yeah, that's the hardest thing in the world to do, is that word, what is it, go back? Confession. We don't want to confess. It's too hard. It's too embarrassing. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. Confession is like claiming your brat. I just recently watched a TV program with my wife. You know that program where they teach how to make bad children good children? Like all the Koreans are going, yes, and the rest are going, huh? Well, there's this program that they have on here in Korea where they must, I don't know, advertise for monsters. These kids are awful kids. They are the worst brats in the world. And in this program last week, this mother had her kid in this a shopping cart. And the cart was half full of things that she had in there, and then all of a sudden the kid got a tantrum and started throwing things out of the shopping cart everywhere. And everybody's like looking at the kid, and the kid's mom is like, we don't want to claim our brat, do we? We don't want to say, he's mine. Yeah, it's the hardest thing in the world to do, is to claim your brat. He's mine. I don't know if you saw Jim Carrey's movie Liar, Liar. Liar, Liar. It's a very interesting movie where for one day he cannot tell a lie. Kun Munze, because he's a lawyer. So for one day he cannot tell a lie. And he has many troubles and trials. It's a very funny movie. But in one of the scenes, he's in an elevator. And there's lots of people in the elevator. And the elevator comes down. And all of a sudden, as the door opens, you can see everybody in the elevator is going. And Jim Carrey walks out of the elevator, and he turns around and he says, "It was me!" How many of you have been in? No, I won't ask. Yeah, I don't usually confess in an elevator. Maybe if there's only 2 of us, then I have to confess. If there's 3 of us, well. Yeah, it's the hardest thing in the world to do, is to confess. What is confession? Confession is when you claim your brat. You say, yes, it's mine, my fault. Confession is agreeing with God. God says you're a sinner. You agree, I'm a sinner. God says that is sin. You agree. Yes, God, that is sin. Today we find many people who are choosing things to do, and they're redefining it and saying, oh, it's not sin. But God says it's sin. And confession is agreeing with God. It is sin. And dealing with it. That's what happened to the psalmist in Psalm 51. He realizes, against you and you only, I have sinned and done what is evil